brain fog, it's fatigue, it's muscle aches. Most of that is caused by what we're eating and our lifestyle and environmental toxins. I ended up getting chronic fatigue syndrome and everything just collapsed. That really led me on a journey of discovering what I missed in medical school.
Is there like any place that people could start right now?
People walk around suffering and they don't need to suffer because we now have the answers.
What are the things that we should be eating, that we should be doing to stay young?
This is what we're eating in America. This is why we're all sick.
You coming on and saying this, it is altering someone's reality.
People are trying to use willpower to change their behavior. It's impossible. You have to use science. People want to feel good. And if you give them the opportunity and you teach them, they can change.
Dr. Mark is in studio. I have been wanting Dr. Mark on the podcast for so long. I think I DM'd you like 3 years ago. You
Amazing.
have to check.
I might check, yeah.
Welcome to the show.
You're one of those 3 million people who are DMing me. I just did not know who that was.
How many DMs do you get a day of people asking for your medical opinion?
Oh my God, it's so hard. I mean, literally everybody and their mother wants help because they're not getting help from the traditional healthcare system. And so it's really like a free-for-all. And my wife, she's having people come out of the woodwork that haven't talked to her in 20 years or now, oh, now you're with Dr. Hyman. Like, I want to know. And so it really reflects this overwhelming problem in our society of people suffering from needless problems that they're not getting answers to traditional medicine and healthcare. And now there's an opportunity for people to really understand what's going on underneath the hood to help access science and information and knowledge that they never had access to before and to transform their health in the ways I help patients on a daily basis, but do it through a platform that allows them to do this at scale.
What's the common denominator that you're seeing with people when it comes to health? Like, what are they complaining about? Headaches? Are they complaining about cancers? Like, what are the things that you see constantly over and over?
Well, the biggest crisis out there is a problem called FLC syndrome.
What's that?
That's when you feel like crap.
You're foggy.
Yeah,
you're
so
chronic
it's
fatigue.
everything that we live with, right? It's brain fog, it's fatigue, it's muscle aches, it's joint pains, it's digestive issues, it's sinus issues, it's headaches, it's sleep issues, it's depression, it's anxiety. I mean, the list goes on and on. And people walk around suffering, and they don't need to suffer because we now have the answers to understand how the body works, how it's a network and ecosystem. And traditional medicine is still back in the dark ages of siloed care with specialists for every different part of your body. Nobody looks at the whole thing, and nobody understands how to create health. So what we do is really the science of creating health. That's what I've been doing for 30 years, is understanding the root cause of disease. How does your body work? How to work with it rather than against it? How to remove the obstacles to health and add the things in that make you thrive. And it's really that simple. And so most people don't know what's going on under the hood. And that's really been the bulk of my medical career, has been peeling back the layers of what's going on with their biology through their medical history, through extensive lab testing, through looking at their microbiome, their hormones, their brain chemistry, their metabolism, nutritional status, their toxin levels. And I can see what's going on, and we can get a roadmap of where they're out of balance and how to get them back into the health they need. The more serious version of that syndrome is called FLS syndrome, but we won't go into that.
What FLS syndrome? What is that?
That's more serious than FLC. It's feel like shit.
Feel like shit. Okay.
I want to go back with you a little bit because I feel like your approach, now people are catching up with your approach, but it has been a very evolved approach for a long period of time. And I would dare say that at times, maybe people thought you were on the fringe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my claim to fame is I got on Quack Watch back in 2003. So that was really my first real home run.
I think people now are saying like, okay, these guys that were early adopters were really onto something, yourself included. And you know, how did you initially get turned on to all this? Because obviously you have a medical degree, and but you started thinking about things in a way that I think is different than most medical practitioners, at least at the time. Maybe
100%. I mean, I was a weirdo from the beginning. You know, I studied nutrition in college. I lived with a guy in college who was a PhD student at Cornell, and he gave me books to read, like Nutrition Against Disease by Roger Williams, and understanding the root causes of how we can up-level our health and treat chronic disease using food as medicine. So I was into that 45 years ago. And I studied nutrition at Cornell as part of my curriculum. I studied systems thinking, how the body works as a network, ancient systems of healing. I studied yoga before I was actually a doctor. So I was already sort of into it. Then, of course, I got brainwashed and got into the cult, and I had to get deprogrammed. And what really led to that deprogramming was me getting very sick myself. And I ended up getting chronic fatigue syndrome, and everything just collapsed. I went from riding my bike 100 miles a day to not being able to walk up the stairs. I went from remembering 30 patients and being able to dictate their charts at the end of the day without any notes to not remembering where I was at the end of a sentence from where I started. And that really led me on a journey of discovering what I missed in medical school. and do a deep dive into the understanding of the root cause of disease, to the body as a network. We call it the functional medicine. And it's really, the name is kind of irrelevant because it's really, we're all going. The entire system of medicine is shifting towards understanding the body as a system and a network, and realizing that all the common things we suffer from have common roots. So heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, autoimmune disease, they're not separate diseases. They have common underlying roots that have to do with inflammation and problems with the microbiome and our mitochondria. And these are things we can, hormonal regulation, these are things we can actually treat and regulate through lifestyle and diet and various other factors that may be helpful, like supplements, sometimes medication. But we now have a different roadmap for the landscape of disease. We never had it before. I started the Center for Functional Medicine at Cleveland Clinic 10 years ago at the invitation of the CEO, Toby Cosgrove, to bring this approach to chronic disease, because he knew what they were doing was, even though it was the best healthcare in the world, it wasn't good enough to deal with this epidemic of chronic disease. It was a juggernaut. I mean, we basically have over 1.7 million Americans dying every year from chronic disease. Most of that is caused by what we're eating and our lifestyle and environmental toxins. We don't learn how to deal with any of that. So we're just piling on drugs and piling on medicines, and we're going to different doctors, and we're not actually getting the answers to what's hurting us. And so this roadmap allows us to think differently, and it's so powerful. And I've written 19 books, and I've treated tens of thousands of patients. But at the end of the day, I'm just one guy, and I felt it was really important to create a model where people can access this kind of understanding and care that is going to accelerate the adoption of the new medicine, right?
Have you always been out of the box, beat to the tune of your own drum thinker since you were little? Is this always how you've been?
It's funny you said that, actually, because one of the inspirations for my whole life was a book called Walden by Henry Thoreau. Oh, yeah. And in that book, he talks about how we should I think it's dance to the beat of a different drummer, right? Or walk to the beat of a different drummer. And I think that's been the sort of mantra in my head. Don't accept the status quo, think differently, look at problems differently. Albert St. George, the discoverer of vitamin C, said, discovery consists of seeing what everyone else has seen, but thinking what nobody else has thought.
Yep.
And so I'm seeing the same thing, the same diseases, but I'm thinking differently about them. And so medicine really has a thinking problem. That's why we take 20 or 30 or 40 years to adopt scientific discoveries into medical practice. I'm just trying to collapse that time. And for me, it's really all about suffering. People are walking around suffering. They don't need to be. And like you said, I get hit every day. I got a hit from a guy whose daughter's in medical school, is a friend of mine. She's suffering terrible headaches and migraines, and she's incapacitated. She's got ring in the ears. She's a young 20-year-old something. And she's struggling, and she's seen the best doctors of Cleveland and here and there and can't get help. And I'm like, okay, well, we can fix this. I know the roadmap to get there.
What's the roadmap for something like that?
Well, it's a methodology of thinking about the body that has to do with understanding the body as a matrix, as a network. And there's basically 7 core systems in the body that have to be functioning for you to be healthy. There's things that cause those systems to be out of balance: toxins, allergens, microbes, stress, poor diet. And there's things the body needs to optimize those systems: the right food, nutrients, balance of hormones, light, air, water, sleep, movement, connection, community, meaning, love, purpose. These are all the ingredients for health. So my job as a doctor is to find out what's causing the imbalance in the system, because the same imbalances can cause different diseases or symptoms for different people, depending on their genetics and predispositions. So my job is to sort of figure out at the root, what are the things that are bothering their system and get rid of them. Do they have too much mercury? Do they have like food allergen? Are they sensitive to gluten? Are they having too much stress? I mean, one patient of mine was 53 years old, living with her mother, was yelling at her all the time, making her crazy. I said, you need a motherectomy. She had to get rid of that.
It was an environmental thing.
Yeah. And other people, don't have enough vitamin D, or not getting enough sleep, or exercise, or not eating whole foods, or are having, trouble with the air pollution. It's making them sick. So what is it that you need to kind of get, right, to get healthy? And so that's really the roadmap. We call it functional medicine, but I think the term is going to fade away. It's just going to be medicine.
It sounds like all of these systems need to kind of work harmoniously. And originally, when you first started talking, I was like, should I ask what the most important system is? But it sounds like you kind of need them all. But if you were going to if you could wave your magic wand and say, hey, this specific kind of practice or lifestyle change could help eliminate a ton of these issues, is there like any place that people could start right now? Just like, hey.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been treating people for so long and realized that most of the diseases we have are related to inflammation. So either, we don't think of depression as inflammation. We don't think of anxiety as inflammation of the brain. We don't think of cancer as inflammation or obesity as inflammation, but they're all inflammatory diseases. We know if you have like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. It's inflammation, but most of us don't get it. So it's really understanding that a lot of it has to do with inflammation, which is caused by our ultra-processed, nutrient-poor diet and damage to our gut microbiome. And so what I created in my practice years ago was a therapeutic diet to reset people. It's like you want to push the button and get your body back to its original factory settings. How do you do that? Like if your computer's going and things aren't working, what do? Well, you just turn it off and you reboot it, right? And so the reboot is something I created called the 10-day detox diet. And the book is officially titled the Blood Sugar Solution 10-day detox diet. So essentially 10 days where you take out all the bad stuff and all the good stuff, and the body just goes resets.
Michael's going to do this. I can already see his wheels spinning. Go ahead, tell us, get real specific about what you mean with this.
So what it is that we take away all the potentially inflammatory foods, and we add in lots of anti-inflammatory foods and things that support the gut microbiome. I'm going to get into it.
Okay, I want to know every single detail of what's anti-inflammatory.
So the things that you want to get rid of in the short run are dairy, because most of our modern dairy is very inflammatory. The second is grains, because grains can also be inflammatory, particularly gluten. Even for people who aren't celiac, it can be an issue. Beans are actually a good food, but a lot of people have trouble with them and they can create inflammation. Sugar, ultra-processed food, alcohol, and caffeine is plus minus, because that is not necessarily bad for everybody. So that's what you get rid of. What you add is high-quality protein, lots of good fats like olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds. You add in lots of veggies, so unlimited. You could eat, it's not a calorie-restricted diet. You can eat 100 pounds of veggies if you want, unlimited. So you get unlimited, and you get unlimited fat. You can pour the olive oil on your veggies at night. You have salads, and then you're adding some fruit, but that's it. So for example, an average day would be I would do a whole food shake, which I have a recipe for in the book. It's basically nuts and seeds and berries, and it's really yummy and delicious. Then for lunch, I would have what we call a fat salad. So I would have lots of, fresh lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, avocados. I would put in nuts and seeds, so toasted pumpkin seeds.
Did you do like a protein, like a chicken or a salmon or anything like that?
Yeah. So then I would usually, I'm lazy because I don't have time to cook at lunch. So I'll take a can of wild salmon or a few cans of sardines or mackerel. And I have like fat from the omega-3s, olive oil fat, nuts and seeds fat. And it's a delicious, healthy salad with lots of veggies. And dinner I'll have a piece of protein, usually some regeneratively raised meat or fish, pasture-raised chicken, sweet potato, lots of veggies. I'll have 3 sides of veggies. So I'll have like sort of maybe roasted mushrooms. I'll have sauteed broccolini. I'll have sweet potato. I might have salad on the side. So it's predominantly plant-rich, I call it, not plant-based. But you still need adequate protein and lots of fiber, which is on the veggies, and that helps you go to the bathroom and do it. But if you do that, your body literally loves it. And I had a patient at Cleveland. 10 days. I had a patient at Cleveland Clinic. She had type 2 diabetes. No, we learned in medical school that diabetes, once you have it, it's a one-way street. Obviously type 2, not type 1. That's something you get for life. And in my practice, I've seen over and over that you can reverse type 2 diabetes. And work of Sarah Hallberg and others who have used ketogenic diets and have published extensively on this, actually reverse 60% of advanced type 2 diabetes with a ketogenic diet. And in this particular patient, she was 66, she had heart failure, she had kidneys were starting to fail, fatty liver, high blood pressure, diabetes, blocks in her arteries. We put her on this same diet I'm talking about. In 3 days, she was off her insulin. In 3 months, she was off all her medications and had normal heart function, no blood pressure issues, and no diabetes. Her blood sugar went from like wildly out of control to normal. And in the year, she lost 116 pounds. And it was just using food as medicine. So, we don't have a drug that can do that. Like if there was a drug that could do that, I would prescribe it.
Sure.
I have a weird question. I love raw milk. Do you like that? Because you mentioned dairy, but you said it's processed. I would qualify that.
I would say yes, but
okay,
it has to be from an A2 cow that's regeneratively raised,
okay,
or from a goat or sheep.
I'd like a goat in my house.
For Christmas, I'd like maybe get goats or chicken, whatever you need, but she has to take care of them. It is from an A2 cow, so you approve of that. Don't ruin our milk
area
source,
of dairy.
If it's regeneratively raised, because you can have an A2 cow that's conventionally raised, like a Guernsey or a Jersey cow that's raised in a feedlot, that's fed corn, that's given antibiotics, it's milked while they're pregnant. You don't want that.
Okay.
Right. You want to make sure you know where your food is coming from.
So I need to ask the farmer that I get my milk from if it's regeneratively raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have another
at least
question.
grass finished.
Okay.
Or ish. No, we're not finished because they're still milking them, so they're not.
They're not done.
They're not fat.
I have another question for you, and this is maybe a medical question. Doing what you do and in your practice, seeing these results and actually seeing things like you mentioned, people think type 2 diabetes is a one-way street, but you've actually seen and have patients that have reversed. Why is this not more widely adopted or looked at, especially with someone like yourself that has such a big and prominent platform? Like,
I mean, it's getting there. It's getting there. From where I was 30 years ago when I started to now, I mean,
What was the resistance in the beginning though? Like if you...
Oh my God. I mean, nutrition is considered almost like I don't know, it's like hopscotch or, pickup sticks. It's like not even a thing in medicine, right? It's so negatively viewed that if you even talked about it, you were laughed at.
It reminds me of like the archaeologists that like they think they found the oldest thing, but then someone finds the older thing and they're like, no, we have, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that.
There's a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which is about how we get paradigm shifts happening, right? Mm-hmm. And it's where where the term paradigm shift came from. And in this book, they talk about this idea of normal science and how hard it is to get scientists to change the way they see things, that they're stuck. And Max Planck said this. He was a physicist. He said, science doesn't evolve by convincing your opponents and helping them see the light, but because a new generation grows up that's familiar with it. In other words, one funeral at a time.
Oh, great.
But the real key point here is that, we have an ability with technology, with the advances in science and medicine to leapfrog over and bypass the logjam that's in our healthcare system and allow people access to their own data through the platform that we created called Function Health. And you go to functionhealth.com and learn more about it. And you can get over 110 biomarker tests done that give you a real deep insight into your labs. You get maybe 20 when you go to your regular doctor for your checkup. It's at a very affordable price, $4.99 for a year with twice a year testing. And it gives you actionable insights how to up-level your health based on the findings, right? So we're seeing incredible results. I mean, we've had over 3 million biomarkers, 30,000 people go through the program, 150,000 people on the wait list, although you can bypass the wait list with the code Skinny Confidential. So that's good.
I'm going to use my own code.
We
are guilty of using our own code rather frequently.
Damn, use it. It's okay. Yeah. And so we're seeing this remarkable things that are kind of shocking to me as a doctor that, if you think about it, I have a friend who's a researcher and he's like, we're doing a study of 2,000 people. It's $25 million to do this study from the NIH. I'm like, wow, that's great. We have 30,000 people's data. This is priceless information. So we're seeing 89% have poor metabolic health. Now, what does that mean? It means they're somewhere on the spectrum from prediabetes to diabetes. And they're somewhere in the spectrum where they're getting high blood sugar, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, they've had a heart attack or stroke or are overweight. That's 93% of Americans, but in our population, they're a little more health forward, but it's 89%. We're seeing 46% with inflammation, which is the biggest driver of all these diseases that I'm talking about, why I mentioned the diet and how to clean that up. And I'll write about this also in my book, Young Forever. And we're also seeing positive autoimmunity markers, which is shocking in 30% of the people. We're seeing 67% have nutritional deficiencies. Now get this, nutritional deficiencies at the level of the lab reference range, which is very, very low. This is not like optimal levels. Like vitamin D, for example, vitamin D should be 50 optimally. What the lab says if it's 30 or less, that's low, or sometimes even 20 or less. And so you're not really picking up everybody, or your iron, optimal iron ferritin, which is your iron store, should be like 45, but the lab says anything under 16 is low. But at the level that the lab says is low, we're seeing 67%. It's probably gonna be 90+% of people have some nutritional deficiency that they have that is not being diagnosed by the regular. Their doctors don't know how to test for it, don't look at it. And the truth is that it's affecting their health. And what do vitamins and minerals and nutrients do? They're the lubrication for all your metabolic chemical processes. Every single thing that happens in your body has to have an enzyme to make it do its thing, to convert from one molecule to another. And vitamins and minerals are the cofactors or helpers for all those enzymes. 1/3 of your entire DNA codes for enzymes. This is a massively important part of your biology that's just ignored by traditional medicine.
Toops & Co. We had the founder on our podcast. They never use synthetic chemicals, toxins, fillers, artificial colors, or synthetic fragrances. I got their beef tallow stick. It is this stick that is so amazing. It's so multifaceted. You can use it on cuts, bruises, burns, all the things Town's got a cut on his side, and I've been using it every single night, and it's helping the cut heal. Everything in their line is carefully selected. So everything is organic, and it's made to nourish your best skin health. They use a grass-fed tallow, which is insane. I also love, they have this baby gel, but I use it as a bubble bath in my kids' bubble bath. If you're giving your kids a bubble bath every single night, I would really be mindful of the ingredients that are in these bubble baths. It's crazy when you learn about it. And I just know that my kids are taking a bath in the best ingredients. What I like about their site though, is I go on and I pick out a bunch of products that I like, and I know that everything is natural and organic. Everything's grass-finished tallow. It's organic botanicals. It's organic cold-pressed plant oils. There's no chemicals. Like, you don't have to worry about it. There's not a lot of sites that you can go on and not have to worry. You should know that they have a code for you. I've used my code many times. Get the baby wash for your kids, I'm telling you. Visit Toops & Co. and use code SKINNY at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. That's toopsandco.com. Use code SKINNY for 15% off your first order. And don't sleep on that beef tallow stick.
Let's talk about one of my favorite partners to talk about, and I really mean that. The Farmer's Dog. Every single time I share about the Farmer's Dog with this audience, I feel good. And that is because I feel we are getting healthy, clean food to the critters that love us the most, our pets, the ones that love us unconditionally. I say this every time. We spend so much time on this podcast and in our lives thinking about how to optimize for ourselves and our children and human health. We don't spend nearly enough time thinking about how to take care of our pets in a better way. That's why I love the Farmer's Dog so much. For those of you that are not familiar with the Farmer's Dog makes and delivers fresh, healthy dog food right to your door. It's developed by vets, nutritionally balanced, and made from real meat and veggies to the safety standards of human food. It's the best option for dogs of all life stages because it's not kibble, it's not canned goo, it's just real healthy food. There are some real issues with traditional dry and wet dog food because many of them are highly processed. They can use much lower quality ingredients they claim to, and they're extremely difficult to portion accurately. Not with the Farmer's Dog. The Farmer's Dog isn't just fresh, higher quality food. They also send the food pre-portioned specifically for your dog based on their unique nutritional needs. This makes it easy to help your dog maintain their ideal weight, which is going to help them live longer, healthier, more fulfilled lives. We also love it because it doesn't matter if your dog is young or old. It's always the right time to begin investing in their health. So if you've been falling short and haven't been giving them the food that they deserve, now you can do it. Now's the time. Don't wait any longer. And of course, we have an incredible offer just for this audience. Get 50% off your first box of fresh, healthy food at thefarmersdog.com/skinny. Plus you get free shipping. Just go to thefarmersdog.com/skinny to get 50% off. That's thefarmersdog.com/skinny. Let's talk about one of my favorite companies in the world, one of our favorite partners for years now, and that is Just Thrive. I think Just Thrive makes the best probiotic on the market. For years, I was struggling with gut health until I got on Just Thrive's probiotic, and now I have my gut thriving. Many of you know that illness and sickness stems from having poor gut microbiome, and so using Just Thrive's probiotic is an absolute game changer. Just take it with every meal. But what I'm really excited to also talk about in addition to their probiotic is they have a product that is the Just Calm, which is the breakthrough product that's going to do wonders for your stress levels. Say goodbye to frazzled nerves and say hello to steady, serene, more relaxed you. Just Calm's proprietary mood lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe a little easier. It also supports better sleep so you can wake up feeling completely refreshed. I use Just Thrive's Calm product as well as their probiotic, and I'm feeling absolutely incredible. Like I said, I think it's some of the best products on the market. It's definitely one of our staples in our supplement regimen. So if you're ready to take control and live your healthiest life yet, you can get 20% off your first 90-day bottle of Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic. Today, visit justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SKINNY. While you're there, check out all their clinically backed products. Take control today with Just Thrive. Again, that is justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SKINNY. So if you're ready to take control and live your healthiest life yet, you can get 20% off your first 90-day bottle of Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic. Today, visit justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SKINNY. While you're there, check out all their clinically backed products. Take control today with Just Thrive. Again, that is justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SKINNY.
Speaking of traditional medicine, you mentioned earlier that you were indoctrinated in the cult of medicine and that you were brainwashed. And
I was joking, but kind of not really.
Like it kind I mean, first of all, I could see how that could happen if you wanted to be a doctor. Can you talk to us a little bit more of that? Like, what do they like literally brainwash you into thinking this one way? If you start to ask questions and you're a doctor, were people like really pushing back on you to begin with? I would love to know more about that time in your life.
Well, thank you for asking. What I decided very early on was like, I knew I was a weirdo, and I knew that I have ODD, which is I'm odd.
I love ODD. ODD is my favorite on the podcast.
And I knew that I had to just swallow it and suck it up and be the best at it. So I graduated in the top 10 of my medical school class. I was really good at it. And I swallowed it whole, but I had in my mind, I knew this is not the whole story, right? I knew better. But I think I kind of got a little pulled into it, like kind of the Moonies, they'll suck you in, No, and I think I kind of bought a lot of the belief that everything that I learned in medical school was everything about medicine. And anything I didn't learn and wasn't taught wasn't important, wasn't relevant, and didn't matter. I didn't learn about nutrition. I didn't learn about microbiome. I didn't learn about insulin resistance. I didn't learn about environmental toxins. So those things are not relevant. And yet those are the most important things in determining the bulk of the diseases we see today in America.
It's so funny when you say all that, whenever we have medical professionals like yourself on that are saying something like this, a lot of people in the medical community that are maybe they get really upset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure you've seen it, but even on the show, it's like you coming on and saying this, it is altering someone's reality, and it is taking their experience and diminishing
it. When you're fearful of something, though, you get angry, and I think there is a fear that someone has spent so much time in medical school and they've done the thing and they've got the degree and they're doctors. There's a fear when you say things like this.
It's like it's questioning somebody's. Well, also, I'll give you another counter situation where that happens. If I come on and question any like journalists or media practices these days, which by the way we all should, I get a huge pushback at times from people that are maybe still in a lot of those traditional settings. They get so upset, and I'm like, well, we can't just all think in this narrow, myopic view.
Well,
right?
listen, just to be straight, most doctors go into medicine with good hearts, good intentions, and are really bright and want to do good in the world. And I would say that is true for most doctors I've met. And what happens is we get indoctrinated, and then it takes a while for us to realize that everything we learn isn't the full picture. And I can tell you that a lot of my patients are doctors. So they know they call me because their spouse or them or their kid isn't well and they don't know what to do and they've tried everything. And then they call me. And I think if you kind of just peel back the curtain and you have these honest conversations in private, they're all going to go, yeah, I know this whole system is rigged, doesn't make sense. It's all funded by the farm industry. The food industry is driving this. We know that food is really important. It's not part of our curriculum. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to apply it. We know how to do. I know how to do brain surgery, but I don't know how to tell people what to eat, right? Which is great. You need brain surgeons. But for the chronic diseases and internal medicine disease and all the subspecialties in internal medicine, I'm not leaving surgical specialties aside. It's really hard because they know that just prescribing drugs isn't fixing the problem. They know they're just managing the disease. They become a little disgruntled, and a lot of doctors are burned out. A lot of doctors are getting out of medicine. And the beautiful thing about this work that I do is it's so inspiring. It's so exciting. It's so invigorating because I actually get to see real changes in people's health.
You mentioned chronic fatigue. If someone's listening and they have chronic fatigue, what are the steps that you would recommend that they take?
It's a tough thing, So we have in medicine what we call syndromes, which are these collections of symptoms that we group into a bucket. And we say, you have this bucket of things that is called X. You have, these symptoms, and it means you have chronic fatigue. You have long COVID syndrome, right? You have PMS, you have premenstrual syndrome, you have irritable bowel syndrome. These are things that are fibromyalgia syndrome or whatever the thing is. And generally it means that we don't have a clue what's causing it.
Oh, great.
And so it's medicine by symptom, not by cause. The approach that we take is really looking at root causes. And so I would say there is no one cause or treatment for chronic fatigue. It depends on what the issues are. For me, it was mercury. It was Lyme disease. It was mold. Right?
Wow. You discovered all those things.
I had a lot. I was like, that's been sort of my blessing and my curse.
What was the source of those things? Is it an environment?
Well, I actually I have genetics. So we do deep genetics testing. I had genetics that showed that I'm not great at detoxing. I lived in China, which was, was building medical clinics there for foreigners. And someone told me I should get an air filter because it was really polluted in Beijing in the winter. So I got one. And stupidly, I would go and clean it out. I would clean it out every day on the porch. And I would bang it and I would shake it and then the dust would fly up and I would breathe it in. So I was literally I was not only breathing the air, I was breathing super concentrate of the air. And also I ate fish and, tuna and all that, had fillings. So I had many sources. And then I had to get rid of that. And that caused me to everything collapsed. My immune system collapsed, my gut collapsed, my cognitive function was impaired. I felt like I had dementia, depression, and ADD all at once. So I would say the main causes of chronic fatigue would be environmental toxins, things like heavy metal. Mold is a huge one. Latent infections, like tick infections, particularly Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, and anything cause inflammation. So our common diet, which is pretty bad for our gut and our microbiome. So I kind of look at the map of what's going on of these triggers, and I find out what is it for you. Like, are you a mold person? Or is it mostly mercury? Usually it's a combo. People usually have a combo package of stuff. Sure. And so we unravel it and people get better. So I'm now going to be 65 this year, and I'm healthier than I've ever been. And it's really been through unpacking this. And I was crushing on the Venice Boardwalk this morning on my new elliptical bike.
I tell you. The question is how big of a factor do genetics play into diseases and how we guard against them? For example, like we have obviously different genetic makeups. Are there different kind of genetic backgrounds that put you in position to be at risk for more? Like, you wouldn't know this looking at me. My grandma was full Japanese. I'm quarter. And I feel I do well with, I need like a fish rich.
You need sushi.
Yeah. No. But then my dad on the other side is more like Scottish, Irish. And so
you need haggis.
Yeah. And I do well with like meat and potato. But I think we've noticed we respond differently.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So this is really where medicine is going, is personalized medicine, right? Function Health allows you to get personalized diagnostics, to know exactly what's going on with your health and to create a custom approach for you. There's not a one size fits all. And what we do know though, is though genetics play a role, they're highly modifiable. You can modify the expression of your genes, not your genes. You can't change your genes, but you can change which genes are expressed. So think about your genes like the keys on a piano. There are 88 keys. Can't change that. But the piano can play anything: jazz, ragtime, rock, blues, classical, whatever, right? From Mozart to, Bob Dylan, right? And that's what happens with your genes. You have a control mechanism that's regulated by what you eat, by how much you exercise, by environmental toxins, by your microbiome, by your thoughts and feelings to regulate your genes, by stress. All these things we have control over. This is called the exposome. The exposome is what we're exposed to. And 90% of disease is caused by the exposome, which is great because it means we can do something about it. Like if you got some genetic disease and you're stuck and you have some really serious genetic disease like Down syndrome, not much you can do. But this is not like that. Most genes are modifiable. And so we're able to now look at people's genes and customize their approach. So I mentioned, for example, my genes around detoxification are bad. So if I eat sushi, I can't get rid of the mercury. It just stays in my system, right? But you might get rid of it because you're Japanese. Maybe you have a gene that maybe allows you to detox mercury fish. But and by the way, mercury wasn't in fish, so probably not.
No, but I think, I guess, and maybe this is, I am by nowhere close to as educated you on this, but my gut and intuition tells me that there's something to look at in just in the terms of the way our ancestors evolved and what they were able to tolerate to be able to evolve.
Yeah. And
I think about like everything that, I remember my dad would get so much shit all the time because he was a meat and potatoes guy, but he's 80 and in perfect health and like works out. And
meat and potatoes got a bad rap.
Yeah, of course. But I looked at him and I'm like, well, if you think about like his ancestors, they probably evolved with most of that diet, where my mom's side was a lot of sushi, to your point. And so,
we see that, right? We see that with, for example, Native Americans. They evolved, particularly in America, they evolved with very little starch and sugar. They were eating mostly bison, or they were eating extremely high fiber diets with very low sugar and starch. And they were really healthy. I mean, they had some of the longest lived people in the world at the turn of the 1900s, for example, Lakota. And the Pima Indians in Arizona, their cousins live across the border in Mexico. They're healthy. They ate their traditional diet. The Pima Indians all of a sudden got the government commodity foods. I call it the white menace: white sugar, white flour, and white fat, otherwise known as shortening, which, you know why they call it shortening, right?
Why?
Shortens your life. Yeah. Exactly. You heard that one. So that white menace was not what they were adapted to biologically, genetically. And so now they're the second most obese population in the world after the Samoans. Wow. 80% have diabetes by the time they're 30. Life expectancy is 46, which is worse than most developing countries in the world. And this is right here in America. So we know that you have to match your life to your genes. And we know different kinds of exercise do better for different people. We know some people are more likely to have issues with blood sugar and carbohydrate intake, and may have more genes that make them predisposed to addiction. And so we can see all this through genetic testing, which is really helpful for me as a doctor to help know what's going on with people.
Well, imagine then too with this modern diet and what I think about all the time is our evolution has not yet caught up to all of these things that we're introducing into our diet. So if you've just taken that isolated example, expanding it across the entire population, are we designed to intake all of these artificial ingredients?
No. I mean, a few weeks ago, there was a major study published in the British Medical Journal. And this study looked at ultra-processed food in 10 million people. So it looked at consumption across many studies, pooled analyses, a bunch of statistical mumbo-jumbo. But essentially, it was looking at the diets of 10 million people. And they found that those who had the highest amounts of processed food have over a 50% higher risk of heart attacks. They had a 50% higher risk of mental illness. Think about that. Depression, anxiety, higher risk of diabetes, higher risk of autoimmune diseases. Just across the board, it's bad for you. And yet this is now 60% of our diets. Depending on some calculations, it could be up to 73% of our American diet. This is what we're eating in America. This is why we're all sick. This is why we, for example, are 4% of the world's population, but had 60% of the COVID cases and deaths, because we're pre-inflamed because of our diet. It's why 93% of us have poor metabolic health. And it's all fixable. It's all fixable. If you know what's going on inside your body, if you peel back the hood, if you get to be the CEO of your own health by understanding your own lab data and health data, you can actually change this.
I would love to know the Dr. Mark opinion on Ozempic. I'm sure. No. I want to know like the
Ozempic for everybody.
What do you think? Do you think that it's for some people, for not for every? Like, well, I want to know your exact vibe on it.
Great. Okay, so it's a drug, like any other drug, that should be prescribed for the right person at the right time, for the right dose, for the right duration of time. So does it have a use? Absolutely. Do I think everybody who wants to lose 5 or 10 pounds should be on it? Hell no. I think we now are starting to see the concerns around the side effects. So a lot of the quote benefits have to do with the weight loss. When you say, Ozempic helps with this and that, it's just getting people's weight down will help. But what are the consequences of that? If you lose weight on Ozempic, you're losing about half it as muscle, unless you are very vigorous in the gym with strength training and loading up on protein, like a gram of protein per pound, which is a lot. So you got to really load up on protein, but still then it can be difficult. So you can end up having lost all the weight, but because you lose half the muscle, and muscle burns 7 times the calories of fat, you're going to be having a slower metabolism at the end. So you're going to eat less than you would otherwise normally be eating at that weight. So it's really a big issue. If you stop the drug, 65% of the weight people will regain all the weight.
Why?
Because they haven't changed the fundamental thing, which is understanding nutrition, how they should eat to fuel their bodies, and how to self-regulate. If people are trying to use willpower to change their behavior, it's impossible. You have to use science. And so the 10-day detox we were talking about earlier is essentially a science-based program to reset your brain chemistry, to reset your hormones like insulin, to reset your metabolism. So you don't have to use willpower. If
someone does go on Ozempic though and they need to get off, maybe they should do your detox program they need
yes, they can do that, but they really need to understand how their bodies work and how food is affecting their own biochemistry and everything. And it's not that hard to know. It's just that there's nowhere to learn it easily. That's why I've written 19 books to teach people, but it's possible. Now, the other thing that's concerning to me about Ozempic and that class of drugs is that it seems to affect the intestine in ways that are really harmful. So when we see a change in a drug, like, for example, we say, statins are great for heart disease. They reduce the risk of heart attacks by 30%. We're like, oh my God, 30%. That's like such a big result. Well, we're seeing increases in bowel obstruction, which means you need to go to the hospital and have surgery or have a tube put down your nose and suck your stomach out. Not a trivial thing. We're seeing an increase of that of 450%.
Oh, wow.
We're seeing pancreatitis, which is a very serious medical condition where you eat up your pancreas. You can cause diabetes. You can prevent you from digesting your food forever. It's inflamed pancreas. 900% increase in pancreatitis. So when I see this data come out, I'm like, there's an article published in the New England Journal a while ago that said, be sure to use new drugs as soon as they come out before the side effects develop. So, when they test a drug, they test it for 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, not for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So now we're starting to see people being on it longer term, and we're starting to see these consequences globally. And it's really concerning. So this is like the latest fad. I think it's going to dip down. And, it's extremely expensive. I mean, everybody who's overweight in America took it. It would be $5.1 trillion a year, which is more than their entire healthcare budget. And even if the drugs come down in cost, it's still a lot. And it kind of misses the target, which is how do we change the root cause of obesity? Now, I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and I saw this little reel from the 1930s, a video reel. And there was all these people walking down the street in New York. There was not a single person who was overweight. Not a single person.
It's like that fitness video of the high school kids doing the training. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
From the 60s?
I mean, you can go, even in 1970, you can look at, there's a beautiful movie called Amazing Grace about Aretha Franklin, where she's in this black church in Oakland, and she's just belting it out. And you look at the whole audience, black audience. There isn't one overweight person in the audience, including Aretha Franklin. But then flip forward 50 years, and African Americans who were healthier in the 60s than whites are now suffering disease at a disproportional rate. They're twice likely to get diabetes, 4 times likely to have amputations, I think 9 times likely to get kidney failure. I mean, it's really bad.
So we've just basically, I mean, I hate to say this broadly, but we've essentially
Screwed
poisoned our
ourselves.
food. Yeah, we've poisoned our food supply, and now there's a problem too with, in many cases, a lack of education and a broad spectrum around a lot of these things. And people just, and I've heard this argument so many times, like, well, groceries are getting more expensive. You got to be affordable. It's like, we were talking to Brian Johnson yesterday. It's an extreme example, but it's almost like one of these things where it's like, okay, I know this is bad for me. I know this fast food and this highly processed food is bad for me, but I'm hungry and I need to eat and I need to be able to afford it. So I'm going to intentionally take something that I know in the long run is not great. And I feel a lot of people, to empathize, they feel trapped. They feel like I don't have another option.
Well, some people don't. Some people know, but I would say the majority don't. I think it's just, we've been so bamboozled by the food industry with massive advertising. And I mean, in the Super Bowl, there were 11 ads for junk food that are poison in the first half. I turned it off after I turned it off.
And did you know it's National Cereal Day? I think that was pushed by Kellogg's, where they're pushing cereal for kids at dinner now.
Yeah, cereal is one of the biggest scams ever promulgated on the human species. Yep. It is deadly to eat cereal in the morning. Literally, it's mostly sugar, right? But I think working in this field for a long time, yes, some people know. Some people are just dysregulated and they can't control their behavior because their hormones and their biochemistry is whacked out, and even though they know it's bad, they'll eat it. But I would say a lot of people just don't know. I mean, I worked on a film that was called Fed Up, and still I think it's on Netflix, about 10 years ago. And as part of the film, I went down to South Carolina in one of the worst food deserts. And there was a family of 5 there living in a trailer on food stamps and disability, $1,000 a month. And the father had diabetes, type 2, already on dialysis for kidney failure. The mother was 100 plus pounds overweight. The son was 50% body fat. He should be 10% at 16 years old, almost diabetic. And I'm like, why do you guys want to be part of this movie? Why you want to sort of improve your health? Well, they all started crying, and it was like the father couldn't get a new kidney unless he lost 45 pounds. He was going to die. They didn't know what to do. So I said, okay, let's go to your house. Let's go shopping. Let's go to your house. So I got them a simple meal. I got ingredients based on a guide from the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, called Good Food on a Tight Budget, How to Eat Well for You and the Planet and Your Wallet. We made turkey chili from scratch. We made salad from scratch, salad dressing from scratch. We baked some sweet potatoes. We stir-fried some asparagus. I mean, really simple stuff. We did it all together. They didn't have cutting boards. They didn't have knives. They had no clue. I said, see what's in your kitchen. And we went and pulled out everything in their freezer and their fridge and the cupboards and the boxes. You couldn't tell it was a corn dog or a Pop-Tart. Like if you looked at the back of the ingredient list, it was the same long list of ingredients of highly processed foods, basically deconstructed, chemically altered, structurally different, food-like products. And if you look at the definition of food in the dictionary, it's basically a substance that helps support life and growth. And these are not foods by the definition of what food is. And this was all of their diet. They didn't know what to do differently. And they were shocked. They were like, oh my God, I didn't know. And so I said, I don't know if you can do this, but I'm going to send you some cutting boards and a knife, a few knives. Here's my cookbook. Here's a guide on how to eat well for less. See what goes. The father lost 45 pounds, got a new kidney. The mother lost 100 pounds, got off all her meds. The son lost 132 pounds, ended up going to medical school. The first kid in his family ever to go to college and medical. And he asked me for a letter of recommendation for medical school, which I gave him. That showed me that people just don't know. Nobody's like, I want to be sick. I want to be overweight. I want to feel like crap. People don't want that. People want to feel good. And if you give them the opportunity and you teach them, they can change.
Let's talk about how to properly hydrate, how to get your proper electrolyte balance. And that is with one of our favorite sponsors, one of our favorite partners, Element. Lauren and I take Element almost every single day. We take it especially when we work out. If you're one of those people that starts to feel sluggish or feel a little brain fog in the middle of the day, it's probably because you don't have the proper electrolyte balance. What we love about Element is it has all your electrolytes needs covered with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And it contains enough electrolytes to move the needle towards each of these electrolyte goals. Like I said earlier, you may be drinking a lot of water, but if you're not getting the proper electrolyte mix, you're not going to get as hydrated as you like. This is going to lead to brain fog. It's going to lead to sluggishness. It's going to lead to tiredness. Many times it's also going to lead to headaches. The way that Lauren and I take Element is every single time we go for a workout, we dump it in our water and we use it throughout the workout so that when we're sweating and getting dehydrated, we're also replenishing and getting the proper electrolyte ratio. I also take it in the middle of the day if I start to feel a little slower, if I've been working hard, just to get my brain back on fire, relit up, again, with the proper electrolyte mix. Many of us don't have nearly enough sodium, potassium, magnesium. Evidence suggests that we should shoot for 4,000 milligrams of sodium, about 3,500 to 5,000 milligrams of potassium, and 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium per day. So many of us aren't getting that, and Element can help you get there. So check them out. Element came up with a fantastic offer for us. Just go to drinkelement.com/skinny to get a free sample pack with any purchase. That's drinklment.com/skinny, drinkelement.com/skinny.
My daughter and I love to bake. We bake probably 4 times a week. We do sugar cookies. We do cupcakes. We do pizzas. We just love to be in the kitchen together. And I cannot believe it, but up until recently, I just had regular baking sheets. I already had switched all of my pots and pans to Caraway. I even got their pizza cutter and garlic press, but now all my bakeware is switched to it. I'm really passionate about this brand specifically because I think it's such an intentional, thoughtful way to switch something in your kitchen to non-toxic. You guys know I've been on this non-toxic journey for a long time since moving to Austin. And since Zaza's passion has become baking, I want to make sure that I'm doing it in the most responsible way possible. Also, something about Caraway that I love is it's really a sleek surface. So you don't need a lot of oil or butter. And just as a reminder, their iconic cookware set comes with the saute pan, the fry pan, the Dutch oven, and the saucepan, plus lids for them all. It also has a canvas lid holder and a magnetic pan rack for storage. It's the ultimate kitchen setup and will save you $150 versus buying the items individually. Plus, if you visit carawayhome.com/himandher, you can take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so visit carawayhome.com/himandher or use him and her at checkout. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. One of the questions that I got asked when I was in St. Bart's on vacation was what bra I was wearing. And it was a good one, okay? It was by Honeylove. There is this bra on their site that's so comfortable. I need to be comfortable in a bra. And it's a silhouette bra. And I got the double bundle. I like nude and white because I was wearing a lot of light pastel colors. But what this does is it lifts your boobs, but without underwire. So you're not super uncomfortable. Also, the straps can be hidden, which I like a lot. And it just fits really right. It runs true to size. So if you're on there shopping, make sure you get it true to size. Like I said, I got the silhouette and it's in white and nude. It's a perfect color. They also have shapewear on their site, but it's not uncomfortable. Everything is so comfortable. They've really revolutionized the bra. It is comfortable. I'm telling you, it's breathable. It's nice. It's cool. You could wear it to bed and be totally fine, which is so nice. So if you want something that's super flattering, really comfortable and cute and just lifts you up, that is the bra for you. Treat yourself to the best bras and shapewear on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/skinny. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off. That's honeylove.com/skinny. After you purchase, they'll ask you about where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Shape your life with Honeylove. That's honeylove.com/skinny.
What are the keys to youth? You mentioned your book.
Yeah.
What are the things that we should be eating, that we should be doing to stay young?
Yeah.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
I don't just mean out.
Yeah, no.
Although I would like some tips on that too.
Well, laser, and I know you're big on staying out of the sun and all your skincare products. So
I like the sun in the morning and for hormones. I just am saying, don't bake in a tanning bed in the sun all the time without sunscreen.
Yeah, that's true. I wrote a book about this called Young Forever, and it really maps out what I'm talking about in great detail about what are the things that go wrong as you get older. How do you address the root causes? And diagnostic testing is a big part of it. How do you know if you have poor metabolic health? Most people walk around and don't even have a clue. All the people who did the 30,000 people, then 89% of them have poor metabolic health. I guarantee you probably 90+% had no idea.
How do they find out which test is it? Is it a blood prick?
So it's a blood test. You go to one of our partner labs.
Oh.
You go in for 15 minutes. Boom, you get your blood time.
Can I do anything? I would rather shit in a box than do a blood test.
That's a gut test.
Well, you know what? There's cream that you can get that we give to little kids. We can put on your arm. You won't feel a thing. You look away. It's in and out.
It's quick?
Quick. 15 minutes, you're in and out of the whole thing. And it's very efficient. All your labs get uploaded to the platform we have, Function Health, and you can see through a dashboard how you do and what's going on over time. So you can find all that out. And that's really the first step, is understanding what's going on under the hood. And then it's really simple. I mean, it's really what you eat. It's how you exercise. It's your sleep. It's how you manage stress. It's avoiding environmental toxins. It's helping your microbiome be healthy. It's making sure your nutrient status is good. It's really not that hard. And I map it out in the book. And for people who want to go really deep, there's a lot of extra stuff you can do. But for the basics, it'll take care of 80 to 90% of it. I mean, I visited the blue zones in Sardinia and Icaria, and they didn't have hyperbaric oxygen, or they didn't have IV ozone or cold plunges and sauna. They didn't have any of that. They were hiking up the mountains 5 miles a day at 95 years old. They were eating food that was, they didn't even call it, but it was all regenerative, organic, heirloom, this and that, and so they were eating naturally in a way that was supporting health. They were exercising, moving, and they had the community. So at the end of the day, it's not that hard. And it's really what we've been sharing is these simple practices that make a big difference to reset your biology.
The moment that I realized that we were it was just I call it a paradigm shift, is we were talking about raw milk, right? And we were talking about cooking organic and ultra processed, but all of these terms are modern terms. If you go back 100 years before all this technology, it was just food. Like I was telling you, we were talking the other day, I was like, milk 100 years ago was just milk. It wasn't like raw milk, right? It wasn't, organic was just the food that grew in the garden, right? And now we have all these terms in it, and it's almost as a differentiator to the garbage, I guess, that is out there now. And when I started thinking about it like that, I'm like, why do you need to describe just a normal food as organic? It just should just be normal food. I
mean, everything your great grandmother ate was organic.
Yeah, and it was all
grass fed. There wasn't anything else.
Yeah, milk was just milk. Yeah, there was no grass. It was just like this was just the cow, or this was the goat, or this was the the vegetable.
I mean, I just came back from Argentina, and they've been doing this for a long time. They do have feedlots there, but I went on a ranch of 6,500 acres. There were 500 plus headed cows, and they were roaming around wild, and we had to go round them up. It was my lifelong dream to be a cowboy and round up cows like a gaucho. And because I learned riding when I was a young kid, and so I always wanted to do that. But we were like, going to these remote areas and these valleys, or hiding in the trees, where get the cows. I was like, they were off doing their thing. They were kind of wild cows almost that had to be brought in for getting some salt or whatever we had to do that day. But it was pretty amazing. And so we really have lost the art of creating real food.
What is the Dr. Mark approved wake up protocol, wind down protocol? Do you have
what do I do in the morning? What do I do at night?
How do you bookend your day?
Great question. So morning I wake up, and this is not what I do every day, but this is my perfect day.
Yeah, give us your perfect day.
Perfect day would be wake up and just kind of simmer in bed a little bit, maybe remember my dreams, but then sit up and write. I like to write in the morning. So I would write just journaling, what's going on in my life, what's happening, what am I thinking, what am I learning, and sort of get my head straight. It's sort of like my own inner therapy, I'll call it. And then I might have a cup of coffee, and then I'll usually work out. And I'll do resistance band training because I can bring it with me anywhere I travel. And I had back surgery years ago, and I used Tom Brady's program. It's TB12, and it's 30 minutes bands, hardcore, and it's cardio and strength. If I have a really, really perfect day and I have time, I'll go for a bike ride or play tennis, some other kind of cardio. And then I have I call my healthy aging shake. And so in that shake, I put.
I might have to record this.
I get
excited.
It's in the book, but it's called the healthy aging shake. And I use regeneratively raised goat whey. The reason I use goat is that most people tolerate it better. It's less inflammatory, but it's an extremely powerful form of protein that turns into muscle. And as I'm going to be 65, I want to keep my muscle. I want to build more muscle. Then I'll add creatine, which helps build muscle.
How many grams? Like 5?
5.
Okay.
Then I add something called urolithin A, which is a derivative of pomegranate. It's been found to increase muscle, to improve mitochondrial function, reduce inflammation, and help with longevity.
I have not heard that one. I'm going to take that.
Yep, urolithin A. And then I also add in an adaptogenic mushroom powder. I add in some frozen berries. I'll put in probiotics. So it's sort of like my kind of go-to all-in-one save my life shake.
And is it the liquid base is like ice or water? Or
Yeah, no, I'll put in like a very simple nut milk. So it's just like almonds, water, salt. It's not like with all the emulsifiers and thickeners and sweeteners, right? So I'll usually use something like that, or macadamia milk is my favorite. And then I'll put it in the blender, and that'll get me going. I'll usually 30 to 40, depending on 50 grams of protein in my shake. And that's kind of the way I go. And then I take my handful of supplements that I like to use to sort of up-level my health.
Which are?
Oh, it's a long list, but
I know we love it. I love stuff like this.
I mean, I start with a multivitamin to cover all the bases. A vitamin D, 3 particularly.
Liquid or pill?
Pill with vitamin K2 added, which is important. Omega-3, which is really important. I take a really high-quality omega-3 with something called pro-resolving mediators, which is really another whole other topic, but it's like the brake on your immune system. So that's my kind of core stack. I will also add in a lot of longevity stuff that I like to take. So for example, NMN, I'll take CoQ10, I'll take mitochondrial support. So carnitine, N-acetylcysteine for my detox system. I'll add in magnesium at night, help me kind of calm down. So this is my morning kind of stack. And then at night, you're asking me about my nightly routine. So, the other thing I do in the morning is usually at my house. I don't do it always when I travel, but I have a steam shower, a sauna, and a bath. I don't really have a cold plunge, but I just turn the water on cold, which is cold enough, and I go in the steam sauna and I go into the cold, and that gets me going, and then I'm ready to go for the day.
I have one like side tangent question. You mentioned coffee could be good for some people, but not for others.
Yeah.
I feel personally that I'm able to process caffeine quickly and get it out of my system. But Lauren, I think, is very...
It's a gene. It's a gene. You can actually measure it. We measure it, and you can see if you're a fast or slow metabolizer. So some people, I can drink espresso and go to sleep, and I'm like, I have coffee in the morning. I'm like climbing the walls for the next 3 days, like.
So some people just, if the gene does not do well with caffeine, they should maybe...
Yeah, listen to your body. If you feel anxious, stressed, irritable, high blood pressure, high heart rate,
I did my
sweaty
testing, it said that I have the gene to probably do well with it. I think, because my brother-in-law, Nico to call you out, he was wondering, like, at some point, are we all going to look back on coffee and say this is something that we should eliminate? I think it's nuanced to your point.
Having 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day is not a good idea. Having a cup of coffee in the morning is fine. It's the biggest source of antioxidants in the American diet, not because coffee's so great, it's because the rest of our diet's so crap. Right?
What brand of coffee do you drink?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because coffee has mold.
Mold-free coffee.
Yeah, there's a kind of micro, what do you call it? Micro roaster. What do you mean, micro roaster in my town called 6 Depot, and they get the beans fresh. They roast them themselves. They grind them. They're very fresh. So I like that. But it's I think it's available online. But I really like their coffee.
We have to get your nighttime routine.
Okay, nighttime. I usually wind down and get off my devices. Usually after about 8 o'clock. I'll often read at night. My favorite is to take a hot Epsom salt bath with lavender drops. And here's why. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. So magnesium gets absorbed through the skin. Magnesium is a relaxation mineral. So it relaxes all your muscles, relaxes your nervous system, relaxes your brain. It binds to receptors in your brain that calm you down. And the sulfate in there turns into sulfur in your body, which is important for detoxification. And then the lavender oil, scientifically proven, and by the way, Johnson & Johnson knows this because they make baby bath with lavender drops, right? And they've shown this in research. It lowers cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and all of us are living sort of jacked up lives, high cortisol, go, and you can actually see cortisol drop. So I take a hot lavender bath, soak for 20 minutes, get into bed, maybe read a little bit, and then go to sleep.
You wondered what all those strange noises were in the bathroom the other day? That was me. I just didn't have the lavender. I was just looking at the magnesium. I was crashing around.
I also take magnesium at night as a supplement as well. And I also take ashwagandha, which is very helpful for calming cortisol. Because, I'm like doing a million things and lots going on. So I kind of go pretty hard, but it helps me kind of calm down.
What are you reading?
What am I reading now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm reading a fascinating book. It's called Rethinking Diabetes by Gary Taubes. And it's a fascinating history of how diabetes was treated from the beginning. And so it talked about, before we had insulin, what do we do with type 1 diabetes? We would put people on a ketogenic diet to keep them alive. 75% fat.
We got to go back.
Yeah. And then insulin came, like, we can give everybody carbohydrates. And they had no idea what was going to happen. I was talking about this sort of historical context. Gary's just a great writer. It's like, it's being like in a suspense novel, but except it's the history of diabetes. But so I'm a little geeky. I mean, maybe not like that, but it's a great book.
If people want to start right now on your platform and they are ready to get started, what do they need to do? Where are they?
Really easy.
Okay.
Go to functionhealth.com, log into beta, put in your code.
Skip the line.
Skinny confidential.
Skinny confidential.
Okay.
Skip the line. Get in there. Once you register, you'll get a message from our team about where to go, which lab, what time. It's good for you. You go back and forth till you figure out the right time. You walk to the lab, get your labs done, 15 minutes, fasting after an overnight fast. Get your results within a couple of weeks. It's uploaded to the platform. You get a full dashboard. You can see your biological age. It's great. You get a calculation that measures your biological age. So like on that platform, I'm like 53, even though I'm 65. Other genetic tests we do, I'm 43, but it just depends on how they measure it. And then you can see all your biomarkers, what's out of range, what's in range. It tells you exactly what to learn about them, each one detailed analysis of what each means, and then actionable insights that you can apply to your life, right?
So this is just like information on steroids. For example, the test I did was very minimal, and like one of the things that taught me was like I need maybe to think about supplementing more vitamin A for my genetics. But this, I mean, it was very narrow view. This is a lot more.
I mean, this measures your whole metabolic health, cardiovascular health, all your hormones. It measures nutritional status, toxin levels, obviously your blood chemistry, liver, kidneys, pretty much everything you want to know. And the problem is that in medicine, we're taught only test after someone has something, right? So if someone's yellow and their eyes are yellow, okay, check their liver function tests, right?
But it's not preemptive to say, how do we stop that?
If they're peeing all the time, they're thirsty all the time, they're hungry, they might have diabetes, check their blood sugar, right? So I'm giving extreme examples, but we're kind of like that. And rather than saying, we need a deep analysis of what's happening with you. And what's going to be beautiful about Function is very soon we're going to be scraping out all your medical record data, all your wearable data. So your Whoop or your Apple Watch or your Garmin watch or your Oura Ring. We're going to be swooping all that up into the system. We're going to be able to ultimately do genomics and all your metabolome, your microbiome. And we're going to be having really the most robust picture of your health you could ever imagine and using computational power to make sense of it. Right. So I see thousands of patients. I've seen millions of biomarkers. I have all kinds of connections going on in my head when I see patterns. But it's hard to train people to do that. You need 30 years of experience and seeing tens of thousands of patients and millions of biomarkers. The computers can do that. And so you get really the input of really experts mapping out what you should be doing, all the scientific literature. And then that comes out with the sort of analysis from the computational power to guide you on what you do. And you have like a co-pilot for your health. It's not replacing your doctor. It's basically aiding your doctor. And sometimes it'll be challenging for the doctor just to be straight because they're going to go, I don't know about these tests. Or, I don't know what this means. Or, you don't need that. Or like there's a lot of that happening, unfortunately, but eventually they'll come along and they'll start to learn. They're like, wow, this is amazing.
I think what I like about it so much is that I'm so into preventative beauty. Like I'll get, Botox between my 11, like to be preventative, but this is like preventative health.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be talked about so much more like you're doing. And I think that it gives you information that you wouldn't have, that it's incredible and it's accessible.
Yeah. Well, just to go on the beauty thing for a minute, and you're right about all that, is beauty starts from the inside out. You can put all the lotions, potions, and creams and lasers and gels and Botox. If you don't deal with the inflammation in your body, if you don't deal with the gut microbiome issues, if you don't deal with the nutritional deficiencies that you have, you can't get good skin, right? Skin happens from the inside out. So omega-3 deficiencies we test for. We test for your thyroid health. We test for your metabolic health. We test for all these things that affect your skin health, inflammation levels. All these things we know have an impact on your skin health. So we can actually help modify those things and then we'll get better as a side effect, right?
It's really cool what you're doing. I want to know too, if someone's going to start with one of your 19 books, which one do you think they should start with?
I mean, I love Young Forever. I put my heart and soul into it. I synthesize everything I've learned over the last 30 years, and it's very programmatic and gives you an exact idea of what to do.
19 books. Wow.
I'm going to be eating my sardines. And
15 New York Times bestsellers. So
that is
wow.
Well, the 19th one is coming out June 4th. It's called the Young Forever Cookbook. So that might be a bestseller too. So I might get 16 out of
Dr. Mark, I am surprised, like I said, that it's taken us this long. Open invite anytime.
Okay,
so
come back. We have so much to talk about.
Come back anytime. I could have asked you so many different questions.
Let's go.
Where can everyone find you? Give your Instagram, all the things.
Yeah, so Doctor's Pharmacy Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Social media is Dr. Mark Hyman. That's Dr. Mark Hyman. My website, drhyman.com. I should know my website. That's drhyman.com.
They can find you, is the point.
They can find me. I'm everywhere.
Thank you for coming on. Code Skinny Confidential to skip the line.
Awesome. We'll link it out too.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.